1490 WGCH and WGCH.com anywhere. WGCH NewsCenter time is 8:21. He's a native of Old Greenwich. Just written a book, The Gatekeepers, How the White House Chiefs of Staff Define Every Presidency. It's fast becoming a definitive work, literally, on how to structure a successful presidency. It all starts with the Chief of Staff. He's been a guest on my syndicated show. We're talking about Chris Whipple. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Good to be back.
And it's an honor to have him. He's doing wall-to-wall media right now with the Best Time book that's out. We talked a little bit before about maybe the Trump administration needed a stronger chief of staff figure, maybe even a general. I had Mattis in mind that ended up being another Marine, John Kelly. What are your thoughts?
Well, look, last December in the epilogue to my book, The Gatekeepers, I predicted that Trump would have no chance of governing unless he empowered a White House chief to be first among equals and to execute his agenda. And that didn't happen. Reince Priebus was never empowered to do the job that had to be done. Donald Trump, more than any of his predecessors, who has absolutely no idea how to govern, needs an empowered White House chief. And maybe Kelly will be it. I mean, the first signs are good. I said that first thing he had to do was throw Scaramucci over the White House fence. He did that pretty quickly. But now comes the hard part. He's really got to make sure that everybody, with the exception of family, reports through him to Trump. And then he's got the toughest part of all, which is he's got to be able to walk into the Oval Office and tell Donald Trump what he does not want to hear. And let's see how that goes.
Do you think a military structure can work with President Trump's entrepreneurial flair? And, of course, the last general we had was General Haig under Nixon.
Yeah, that didn't go well. I mean, Al Haig was Jerry Ford's White House chief after Nixon resigned, and he lasted a little bit more than a month. One of the reasons for that was because Ford had this idea, much like Trump, that he could run the White House himself and everybody could just come and go from the Oval Office. It was a disaster. So the fact that we've suddenly got a general as White House chief doesn't mean much. The job is exponentially more difficult than anything Kelly has ever done. The gold standard was James Baker under Ronald Reagan, and I would say Leon Panetta under Bill Clinton. You can't just order people around and intimidate and hope that you're going to suddenly be able to function. You've got to be, as Leon Panetta was described, he was an iron fist inside a velvet glove. You've got to be a diplomat. You've got to be able to inspire your staff. You've got to be able to, most importantly, tell the president hard truths. And so does anybody think Donald Trump really wants somebody like that around? We'll see.
Chris, do you think that there are other conditions that General Kelly should have or maybe has put in? And I'm thinking of things like irrelevant tweets attacking people like Mika Brzezinski or his own attorney general, or perhaps the desire to fire him or the special counsel Mueller. Do you have any other conditions that you would suggest?
Yeah, I mean, look, the definition of insanity would be trying to do this job the way Reince Priebus did without the authority and without setting any conditions. The first condition I would have asked for would be, Mr. President, you can tweet all you want, but you're going to have to run them by me. Now, failing that, I think he should draw a number of red lines, and one of those lines should be, if you decide to tweet something that is demonstrably false, I will resign, and you can start looking for White House chief number 3. Another line he might draw is, if you decide to fire Robert Mueller without cause, I will resign. And again, you can start looking. I think every effective White House chief has been ready to resign. And, you have to if you take that job. You got to be ready to go if things become untenable.
Very interesting. Now, Presidents Carter and Clinton got off to very rough starts as well. President Clinton, in fact, got reelected by a landslide, but Jimmy Carter did not. How serious do you think the Trump administration is in?
So, in fairness, it's true that it took Jimmy Carter 2.5 years to realize that he really needed to empower a White House chief. Again, he thought that he could run the White House pretty much by himself. Bill Clinton took 1.5 years to realize that he had to empower a White House chief in the form of Leon Panetta. So it's true that presidencies can be salvaged, but I got to tell you, this one, there's no comparison between their troubles and Donald Trump's troubles. This White House is the most dysfunctional in White House history. It can't do anything right so far. It can't issue executive orders that are enforceable. It can't pass legislation. It can't prioritize the president's agenda. Nobody knows what it is, really. And it can't get anybody on the same page. So to think that a general is suddenly going to solve all of that, I think is a little naive.
Very interesting, and I'll tell you, Chris Whipple has looked at all 17 chiefs of staff since H.R. Haldeman, who was, of course, Nixon's chief of staff. The book, again, is The Gatekeepers, How the White House Chiefs of Staff Define Every Presidency, and giving us a few minutes on your wall-to-wall media schedule. Thanks much, Chris.
Hey, always a pleasure to come back, Jim.
WGCH NewsCenter, times 8:27. We'll be right back.